é, Private Living, Saquarema City, Federative Unit, RJ, Brazil, South America, 26 May 2023. The report we had today: CGQM creditor under risk interference by criminal use of institutional power, complainant risk. Still data from interference on private living affecting third interest since legitimate and recognized and confirmed object same crime system at institutional power. Let's suppose that I have the property as heritage or the expectation to receive a property or something like this. And then you decided to do an interference on it. But my expectation, I decided to transfer, for instance, the administration or the use, considering the paycheck, for the European community and the embassy, the United States through embassies. In other words, I set and I made my property as an extension of USA and Europe, and not transferring the legitimacy at the soil, which is part of my property, but the right to do the administration included the protection of this property. We'll go by the Brazilian law. And then you decided, for instance, to hurt my property, even in the near future, by the misuse of institutional power. You affected third interest as we complained at the report. You please take a look on risk report to any question 2023 tracemay.blogspot.com. The last report we had CGQM basic concepts offered to the International Criminal Court and others, paycheck. It's really sad have so many acting like debtors, unveiled as criminals by legal request of right under constitutional conformance. It's a strong proof about how many institutions are without legitimacy but playing by violence and suppression. If you couldn't got respected as an institution, indeed you are playing by violence to do the intimidation and have the continuity of wrong things or wrongdoings made by violence and fear. In general, you had no dialogue. You only act violating even expectations, things that are beyond your capacity as knowledge, because we're talking about the law and constitution with other elements at the international arena about your behavior as domestic risk and crimes on institution affecting third interest even on international arena, and hurt for sure, or as you like, as well this arena too. But playing by violence and suppression, fraudulent defaulters, cowards, charlatans, and vagabonds for sure. The legal right, compensation, made debtors inside an interval legally charged. It's the paycheck. You are all there, clustered as institution, specified inside each one of those institutions misused by the wrongdoer at the power. Debt is an obligation at the credit. You must solve and pay this. The right exists even if I forgive the credit. The obligation is part of my ambition or pretension inside my right as compensation. If I forgive the credit, I will forgive the obligation, but the right as compensation still remains. But you affected and hurt me. The right as compensation, the financial penalty required, the same trend, because your behavior is still the same against my individual basic rights, the diffuse area, the community or international arena and expectation, and also the international criminal court. The interference you do is obstruction and procedural fraud. It's obstruction with a major consequence. The legal right made debtors inside an interval legally charged paycheck. Debit is an obligation at the credit. The right exists even if I forgive the credit in order to release the obligation, but the right still remains. But our crooks perpetrated so much and even more aggressions inside Brazilian institutional system and peers by violence, made by organized crime inside institution, unveiled by the behavior at the debt, misusing the power, having no capacity to do the accomplished without modification of data, and setting the conformance of the law and the constitution at their own interest and purpose, but the organized crime has no legitimacy to use the power. As regular use of institution, they are outlawed, and there are no guarantees at this side. Even not consider that they are real authorities or also real criminals. They are in the middle, cornered by both. And they increase the aggression. And that the international community, inside Brazil, institutional violence, if made by organized crime, has no legitimacy. And at the international community, are acts not recognized as institutional dialogue, because you can't have institutional dialogue as criminal use of institutional power. It's an absurd, another one. But when noticed as aggression against major interests, as we prove at the property administration or doing the violence against other constitution or premises, maybe there will be no institutional dialogue at the reply to international police reciprocity. CGQM Multi Economic and Financial Control, Part 4 or 5, Fees and Market Rates, Privacy Violation and Obstruction, Procedural Fraud, and others. To default the paycheck are white-collar crime. Through institutional misuse of power, always organized crime go inside the institution. No legitimacy at domestic or international arena, totally outlawed. It's proven as institutional crime, with chairs threatening mankind since individuals until we all. It's a total workflow. Why it still takes too long to accomplish the consequence against chairs specified by criminal behavior at institutions. Starts with my paycheck, the consequence. Against institutions segmented and has fees, which is a responsiveness, financial responsiveness to do the treatment of the risk as default, the obligation nominated as credit, executed by a charge as a legal charge, a judicial charge, or a private charge, but you are unable to solve none of them. And who gives the cause to do the the operative flow at the fees, indeed, having the cause as root cause to execute the fees, is linked by with the problem by the regression, because indeed the delay at the application as fees come by the delay of institution to apply the consequence, legal consequence, as the charge in the very first moment and others. But the charge only will have the fees if the debtors feel comfortable into do the default even as white collar crime and organized crime, because it's a criminal activity with interaction inside institutions, since local institution until the global arena. The financial index against default is indeed a risk rate. All ties are tied. Of course we did like this because we kind of feel uncomfortable with this idea as default. You observe that the global community goes like this. You have a lot of players as the stage, which goes 1 up to 197. Let's suppose that them all had signed the home agreement and put the International Criminal Court, that is, it's not a state but represents all states into the application of things under their capacity to understand and apply the consequence. But the silence by them, even as prosecution, must be under the observation as of independent oversight mechanism, because we'll track all states that signed the home agreement by silence. And if we prove the transnational organized crime as a mobilization in global scale, the silence is a reason to any one of these request the prison of the members as International Criminal Court, including the prosecution, not by the misuse only as International Criminal Courts, but by the silence of the court and prosecutors, threat, and indeed it's a crime against each one of the state members of the home agreement, because it's a pandemic crime, mobilization, threatening we all, and by the silence about the issues at this court, indeed qualified as a criminal activity with in each one or in any of those state members of the home agreement as international agreement. Can you understand International Criminal Court? The antitrust justice in USA can request the prison of any one of you and also the entire European system by the silence against the issue complained that started at the domestic arena, not only Brazil at budget, but also the America as United States of America and the European system. See, things must work, and the paycheck totally paid and covered with fees and financial penalties as judicial consequence by considering the pattern as my right, which start with an advice to 37 trillion, considering 33 trillion as the behavior systematic, incremental, and up high. Also the financial penalties 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, total 37 trillion. Continue the scams. You for sure has this pretension totally affordable, and the paycheck by the quality as vagabonds that you all are for sure will be made by proportion. Have a nice weekend.